and today we're hanging out with Ryan D. Brown, who is a manifestation, empowerment and awakening coach, and he is also on the team for Bentinho Massaro, which is pretty cool. He is the only, at this point, the one and only fully endorsed coach under the team of Bentinho Massaro. And today we're going to talk about relationships, and specifically how to create empowered, expansive and nourishing relationships, which is something that is, I believe, something that pretty much all of us are longing for, and yet pretty much all of us screw it up. And I have done many times as well. I'm sure you have, unless you were just a natural perfect from the beginning. Yes.
So, learning experience.
Yes, and that's what we're here for. We're here for the learning experience, not to get everything perfect and right the first time around, but we are learning as we go.
And I would say, actually, I'd perhaps even now say more an evolutionary experience, because learning can be learning to do the right things to get it right.
Yes.
Where the frame of relationships as an evolutionary process supports a context to better go with the flow.
Totally.
Yeah.
Good. So we have that right. So evolutionary context. So my question to you, Ryan, is what have you found are some of the keys to creating empowered, expansive and nourishing relationships?
The first thing that popped into my mind was to not grasp the person that I'm intrigued by, falling for, captivated by. It's this really fine balance of realizing our own self-empowerment, our own, like, we are the source of everything we're looking for. When we're excited about something in our circumstance that we see, it's a reflection of, there's some nugget for us, there's some reflection of us. But if you stay too much on that side, then you'll never actually lean into a relationship. And so the other side of that coin is to put all of my focus onto you, and you're the source of my happiness. And so to me, it's such a sweet balance of realizing my own empowerment, but then acknowledging we can foster that with each other. You know, like in looking at you, you can help turn me back to me, so to speak.
So what I hear you say is really this dance between, on the one hand, not getting lost in, oh, here is this person who is the answer to all of my problems, who is the fulfillment for all of my internal perceived emptiness, and not lose ourselves in that, but at the same time not fall prey to that, the other side of being too detached in a way, and also from a sense of protecting and being like, oh, I don't need anybody else, I'm just happy by myself and I don't need you, which is also not coming from wholeness in a way, but where we can come and really meet each other in exploration and going deeper in that. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
And I feel that's sort of broad strokes overview of it, and there's so many nuanced details perhaps we'll get into, but yeah, as a broad strokes, definitely that's an angle which will assist with the process.
Yes, good. So something that has been said so many times over and over again, you probably heard it a million times as well, is this thing that you just mentioned a little bit as well, is that whatever we're looking for, we can find within. And at the same time, there is that longing that we have to share partnership and to share intimacy. And I was saying to Ryan the other day as well, when we were talking about this, that sure, there is a joy and a peace that we can find within ourselves, but to make love and to have mind-blowing sex and to cuddle, we kind of need another person there. So yeah, so how can we find that balance of the inner peace and contentedness, as well as, in a way, having the courage to open up and allow the full longing of that, the longing for intimacy and the longing for partnership?
To not assume that all of our needs will be met by one person. That's another thing. If I was to gauge one of the pivotal things I see people stumbling over, is that all of their needs, all of their desires, they might be on this spiritual path, and so they're looking for that empowerment within themselves, but then they find somebody, and then this person will satisfy this style of reflection, like these needs that they want to meet. That may have been true many years ago. That seems a bit old school nowadays, where things are so accelerated. There's such opportunity for growth, for learning, for expansion, that there's opportunities to open with many, many people and to feel love, to feel connection. And there's different qualities. Just because my heart's open and I'm connected, say with you, doesn't mean we need to have sex. But for people in the world, if they never really let themselves open and feel this connection, feel this level of withness, then they will then throw that whole storyline onto you. And then with that attachment comes all kinds of other problems,
yes.
The steps. And so I really feel the new paradigm of relationships is to be able to discern. Like, there's such a broad bandwidth of connection with people, and to allow loving, nourishing, juicy connection and energetics. And it doesn't mean relationship per se, and it doesn't mean sex per se, but there are some people that it does mean that. Like, then you can get into a relationship. But actually a phrase is coming to mind, a recent relationship. We were physically monogamous but emotionally open. Meaning, so for us, physically it felt right in our relationship to physically stay connected with each other. But to be emotionally open, meaning when we'd be out and about in this beautiful community, we'd be able to connect, to cuddle, to share affection with friends and be emotionally connected to people. And to me, that's actually a really sweet balance. It's one of many configurations.
That to me sounds really nourishing as well, and really balanced.
Yeah.
And to be aware of that line between exactly emotional openness and more physical intimacy. And this is also something, so Ryan and I have just met like a couple of weeks ago, and there's been this beautiful friendship growing, and we've really been feeling into, where is the biggest nourishment in this? Because when there is this feeling of cuddliness and closeness and connection, it's so easy that then is projected that should become something more physically or sexually intimate, or more like a relationship. But to actually really stay true moment by moment by moment to what feels the most aligned, what feels the most open. And this, I feel, also ties into a really important point in how we can move into a relationship, that we don't attach a prefixed agenda onto the unfolding of a relationship. Because very often, if we have a longing to meet someone in a relationship, then if we say meet another person, it's almost like we have this image in our head of how things should be. And that's awesome, that's really good to be clear about what we want in a relationship, but sometimes it can be this feeling of like, okay, this is what I want in a relationship, and then it's almost like we take this picture and then hold it in front of the other person and say, oh, are you fitting my image of what I want in a partner? And if we see that the other person is like checking the boxes of our wish list, then the attachment can come in very easily, that, oh, this is it, or this might be the one. And then we are in a way stifling the natural process of the connection having some space to actually unfold. Does that make sense?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So that's something that I feel as well, to just really have the openness and the spaciousness to let things unfold organically and naturally. And that, in a way, is only ever possible when there's already a feeling of contentedness and fulfillment within. Because if we're coming from a place of feeling a lot of lack and neediness, then anyone who checks like half of the boxes in our ideal partner wish list, we're gonna like hook in our claws and try to kind of hold on to that. And that, maybe you've experienced this, is a very fast way to kill the connection and to kill the attraction, to kill the magic of the moment, really, in that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so another point I want to just have a bit of a ball game back and forth with you maybe about is this the balance between our own path and our own connection with source, with life, with our higher self, and the connection in intimacy. And so my curiosity is what you have to say about that, if there is a way to dance with that in a way that both honors that one's own path and one's own growth and one's own alignment, as well as finding nourishment for the intimacy.
Yeah. A perspective which was quite revolutionary for me when I heard it and it really settled into it was that the love that we're seeking, the experience of connection, of openness, of juiciness that I might experience with somebody, or that I have experienced with somebody in a relationship, that experience is always already right here available. That love, that sense of wholeness, that sense of contentness, that sense of excitement. And there's something about the circumstance, or something about this person fits this checkbox. Like, oh, this person's from a good family. This person has this background. She can relate to me. This person has a similar career as mine. Whatever it is, there's a certain checkbox that in one level we're subtly gauging, is she safe? Like, is this, or is he safe? And if, like, will he leave me? Could this work out? And when a certain level of checks are checked off, there's a level of then trusting the scenario, trusting the circumstance, trusting the situation. Okay, now I can actually let go and relax into this space. And it's basically a big permission slip to just let down our guard and to just be open in love. And so that, realizing that, has first of all been amazing when I am physically with myself, like alone, just walking, taking a shower, whatever I'm doing, to play with that idea. Like, and then use my imagination to, okay, well, what if there was this amazing woman, or the woman I'm dating next to me? How would I feel right now? And I can feel myself opening. And in a way, what that does is it helps loosen the grip of, I need this person in order for me to be happy.
Yes, like first I find that one, and then I can feel good.
Yes.
When actually it's the other way around.
Yes.
How life, just in terms of mechanics of how attraction and stuff happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what I would actually suggest, if this is resonating, if this is somehow kind of making sense, is to use your imagination, play with this. In a way, prove this to yourself. When you're physically with yourself, imagine that your partner who you already have, or the partner that you're wanting, is sitting next to you, or perhaps they just went to the bathroom. So they're still here, but they're just like right over there.
Yeah.
And see,
or
like,
just about to walk in the door.
They're just about to walk in the door, yeah. And so use your imagination to then really get into that state and notice if you feel something. Notice if you notice a relaxing or an opening. So then again, that can loosen the grip of another person. But very quickly, I also want to add to the tail of this, that doesn't then mean the goal of all this is to be self-sufficient and autonomous in my spiritual prowess, you know? Because that also is, that's too far to that side of the spectrum. But when I know that you're not the source ultimately of my happiness, and I may not always be able to access that bliss state on my own, but I know theoretically or technically it is me. So now with you, I can explore that. We can explore that together. We can support each other in opening. And I might experience openings I've never experienced before with you. But when you're then not saying, oh, good, he experienced bliss, let me keep that perspective so that he wants to stay connected with me.
Yeah.
If he knows he's independent, he might not stick around as much.
That's an interesting point as well. If we're not actually afraid of being alone, then that whole reason for being in a relationship to not have to face our loneliness, when that is removed, then that can, I was going to say, well, it has a good and a bad side too, but actually it's only good, because it's either means that then a relationship will dissolve because it's not based in wholeness, it's not based in nourishment, but it's based in two people holding on to each other to not have to face the loneliness. And when that fear is gone, then the relationship might dissolve. So that is good. And then another good thing is that within relationships we can actually recognize that we are coming together not to fill each other's gaps or to fill up the loneliness, but just to come from a place that is already fulfilled, free, whole and abundant, and then we can give from that place.
Yes. And even if I'm realizing that there's parts, say, in my body or in just my sense of self that have felt shut down for many years, and being in a relationship with you might open that for me. Having the perspective coming from the paradigm, though, of ultimately this is all possible within myself, and you're helping me unlock my own empowerment tools. So it's so relevant to be in a relationship. Like, that can be so relevant. And it can, on the outside, look like we are completely in a traditional relationship. I'm totally focusing on you, and we're totally expanding each other. But that subtle orientation, in my perspective, makes all the difference.
So let's see if there's anything else. There was something that just came in a moment ago. Let me just check. So one thing that I've experienced before, and this was very true in my last relationship, was that we felt so deeply in love that we both in a way forgot about our own alignment that has nothing to do with each other, but really just about following our own passion and growth and expansion. And in a way we just became like this, like we just totally merged. And that was very romantic and very beautiful. But then when the relationship ended, it was the feeling like there's nothing left, because it's like everything was just built on us being together. And so this is what I'm recognizing so much now, is that it really always comes back, as with everything, whether it's business or love or anything else, it really comes back to our own relationship with ourselves, our own relationship with Source, our higher self, whatever you want to call it. And that alignment, and also in that is when we attach our happiness to another person, we are like deeply in the danger zone and in the swamp of potential misery, because if we're dependent on the actions of another person for us to feel good, then that's very much giving away our power and our empowerment. And also the recognition that in the same way that life always reflects back to us what we believe about ourselves, about each other, about life, in the same way I've noticed that people tend to live up to our expectations. So if we're together and I'm looking at you and noticing all the negative aspects of you, very, very likely more of the things I don't like are going to start to show up through you. And in the same way, conversely, if I notice all the beautiful, positive, lovable, magnificent aspects in you, even perhaps when he's not showing up in a way that might seem like very pleasing or lovable, then those things will start to manifest more and more and more. And so it's not so much in relationship that I feel that the growth is in making the other person show up in the way that we like, but to keep on seeing the greatness, to keep on seeing the beauty, and to keep on seeing the magnificence in the other person. And so in that way we have much more of vibrational creative power, that in a way if we're together, it's almost like I'm fine-tuning and feeling you into being, if that makes sense. It's kind of subtle, this thing, but do you know what I mean?
Well, the way I'm hearing
Maybe
this...
you can clarify
the way I'm hearing this is like how we can support each other in our growth, in our evolution. This is not necessarily the paradigm of I'm just looking for security and happiness and I just need a wife.
No, exactly.
This is like, if we're supporting each other's evolution and growth, then I'm holding this, in a way, your magnificence. And so I'm offering this space for you to step in and to fill that space in our shared experience. And vice versa, when you're holding me in my magnificence, then you're vibrationally holding a space for me to, like the gravity, the psychic gravity is relaxed. It's like there's this openness for me to then step into that.
And magnificence is another word for just being in alignment in a way.
Yes.
With
to be
how Source sees you.
Yes, and magnificence is also just my authentic self, if you want to say it that way. For me to be my genuine, authentic self, with things I know I'm really good at, but also things I might be insecure about. But when I feel you're holding me in that greatness, in that beauty, in that my own version of perfection, then it just creates a very open field for us to meet in.
Yeah, and it's in a way it ties into this thing which goes for all of life, that the more we appreciate life, the more things come into our experience that we can appreciate. It becomes this positive feedback loop in terms of life and manifestation. The same thing, the more I appreciate you, the more you show up in a way that I can then appreciate very easily. And sometimes I feel that in relationships we can get into, especially after a longer period of time with one person, that we can get into focusing more on the stuff that we don't like, the stuff that bugs us, because I mean that's in a way it's like natural, but also it's a habit that we can get into if we're not conscious enough. And sometimes we can get stuck in trying to fix the problem from within the problem. And very often the solution is simply a shift in focus. So if I'm noticing stuff about my partner that annoys me or that bugs me, and sometimes it might be necessary to work out some details, but if I can first just really see the greatness and the magnificence in him and have that as a primary focus, there might still be practical things that need to be worked out. But fundamentally there's recognition of the beauty and the love and the greatness in the other person. And that seems to be the solution to pretty much everything. Or in other words, when we tune into the frequency of seeing the beauty and the love and the greatness in the other, on that level, most problems don't even exist. Is that in resonance with your experience as well?
Yes, because the things that could be perceived as problems won't be perceived as problems. There can still be growth opportunities. There can still be logistics in life that we have to figure out together. But when we're holding it from that frame, then those things aren't seen as their fault or something negative in and of itself. You know, so these things. So then it is, in a way, we don't have problems. We just have out of alignment perspectives that we're bringing in alignment, depending on how we think about it, or more shadow aspects of our personality into the light, so to speak. But yeah.
I love that you mentioned the out of alignment perspectives, because if I'm experiencing something in relation to my partner that feels bad, that feels negative, it doesn't mean that necessarily that he needs to change. It just means that right now I'm holding a perspective about my partner that is out of alignment with how life or source or higher self sees.
Yes.
Which is always with total love and acceptance. And there can still be clarity and fine-tuning in that. But it's not so much about getting to a place where like, oh, can you please change so that then I can love you? But can I change my perspective into something that's more aligned, and then love is naturally there.
And I would say that reminds me of a big distinction also, the distinction between a trigger and a preference. So what I mean by that is if I get triggered by my partner, if there's something she's doing that really gets to me, that is definitely a reflection of one of my own, I'm bumping up against one of my beliefs, and somehow what my perspective on whatever she's doing, I'm holding that will create suffering for me, that will create lack in my experience. So there's some trigger that's definitely, let me look in a mirror and see where that is within myself and see if I can shift my orientation. However, that does not mean stay in a crappy situation that's not relevant, that's abusive, or that's just not fun, thinking that, oh, I should actually just be able to change my perspective on this. I don't like this because it's just my fault or something. I can't see that is all good somehow. So I would say, that's what I would say, but there's still preferences. I can realize that the thing my partner's doing doesn't have to affect me and my state of happiness, abundance, and my success in the world. Regardless of whether she leaves and takes all the money, whether she meets another man, whatever. Ultimately, in truth, that in no way needs to affect my state of being in my life. However, I can still have a preference of, once I deduce what's my side of the street, what's my trigger, then I can say, okay, cool, I can be abundant regardless. My life will be successful regardless. I will have love in my life regardless. If not in this vehicle, this form, which I kind of assumed and projected it would be, maybe the next best thing's right around the corner. So I get right within myself, and then I can more objectively look at this situation and be like, cool, the trigger's gone, and this behavior is still not okay with me. Like, this is not the type of connection or relationship that I want in my life. So I'm going to make a choice to leave or to have a conversation or whatever. But that's a big distinction.
I'm so happy that you said this. And this is also what I want to tie into this again with the alignment, is that when we come into clarity and alignment within ourselves, then either the relationship that we're in, if we're in a relationship, is going to begin to reflect that alignment, or if that's too far apart, then that relationship is going to disappear from our existence, and another one more aligned is going to come in.
Yes.
So either way, it's good.
Yes.
Like, relationship gone, good. Relationship aligning, good. You know, either way, it's good. And also in between, if we're not with someone, then there's still the fulfillment there.
Beautiful.
Anything you want to say in closing?
Thought this was such a fun conversation, and on another level, it's just the tip of an iceberg. There's so much good stuff about all of this.
Listen, we can make like a 3-week video.
Yes. But yeah, in closing, just know and enjoy the discovery that you hold everything you're seeking. And that our connections and relationship is like the icing on the cake. It's a way to accelerate or to enjoy really these connections. But the love that you feel in connection is your love. And when we can really dial back from the circumstances and just feel that love, it starts to become transparent to our entire life. So we're sitting outside looking at a tree, and there's an openness and love in the sunshine. Or sitting with a friend, or writing somebody an email, or sitting with my lover. There are different qualities, different flavors, and different perhaps volumes of excitement, but it's still the same love in my experience. And when we can really own that, there's less attachment, and when there's less attachment, life can flow so beautifully and effortlessly. Yes.
Wonderful. So, thank you, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in and for watching. If this touched you in any way, if there are any comments you feel moved to share, feel free to leave a comment below. Also, if you have found any keys in your life, any insights, any breakthrough moments that you want to share that might be useful for other people, feel free to share it below, and